All right, guys, Mr. Antonucci here, and in this video, I want to teach you all about how to find simple probabilities. Now, the probability in an event is the ratio of the number of favorable outcomes or successes, or like what you want to happen for the event, to the total number of possible outcomes. In other words, the number of things that could occur in the situation. So a couple things before we do an example. The list of all possible outcomes is called the sample space. Keyword, key phrase, sample space. That's all the outcomes that are possible for a situation. Probabilities are always a number between 0 and 1. Typically, they're reported as a decimal. Almost never will you have a probability of exactly 0 or exactly 1. Here's why. 0 means that an event is impossible to occur. For example, the probability that it rains on the 32nd day of a month. The probability of that is 0 because no month has 32 days. Okay. 1 means the event is certain to always occur. So it's certain to occur or always occur. That would be like some weird example where the probability that a month has a Monday. Well, all months contain at least one Monday. Most of them have 4 or 5. So that means that there's 100% chance that it could happen. Now, probabilities are always a decimal between 0 and 1. Sometimes they're expressed as a fraction, and then sometimes they're converted to a percent, and I'll show you a little bit about that. So if a single dice or single die is rolled, what's the probability of rolling a 3 or an even number? Now, when you roll a dice, you can roll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just a standard regular 6-sided die. We're not talking about anything crazy. Rolling a 3 or an even number. Well, what I want to occur can be a 3, a 2, a 4, or a 6. So that's 4 possible outcomes that are favorable to a total of 6 outcomes altogether. So that would be 4 out of 6, which reduces to 2/3, which can be converted as 0.6 repeating as a decimal. If we round that as a percent, it'd be 66.7%. Okay, those are different ways to express the probability. You typically will see it presented as a decimal or a percent. They don't often do fractions, but sometimes it happens. Rolling at least a 2. Now, this phrase at least means from that number or greater. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 would all fit that description. So there are 5 possible ways you could roll a die where you get at least a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6 out of 6 total possible outcomes. So that is going to be 0.83 with a repeating 3, which is going to be as a percent 83.3% if you round that there. Okay, which kind of makes sense because that's almost all of the possible outcomes there. So you know the percent or the probability is going to be pretty high. Okay, let's talk real quick about something called complements. The events for rolling a 1 and for not rolling a 1 are complements. So the sum of the probabilities for any 2 complementary events is always 1. So if you roll a die, there's 6 possible outcomes. They're either a 1 or not a 1, or you could say it as a 2 or not a 2, or you could say it as an even or not even. But if you add up those 2 different probabilities, they're almost like opposites of one another, but they're called complements, and that accounts for everything. So a bag contains 12 tiles with the letter A, 6 tiles with the letter S, 9 with the letter P, and 5 with the letter E. If you take out 1 tile, what's the following probabilities? The probability of A is, well, how many ways can you draw an A? Well, there's 12 opportunities to do that. So that'd be 12 out of what? Well, how many possible tiles are there? Well, if you add the numbers up, you would get 32. Okay, so 12 out of 32 is the probability, which reduces to 3/8, which as a decimal is 0.375 or 37.5%. Okay, next one, probability of a P or an S. So this notation here means probability of selecting an A. This means probability of selecting a P or S. Well, that's going to be the probability of a P is 9. There's 9 ways to do it, not the probability. And an S has 6 ways to do it. So that's going to be 15 out of 32. And 15 out of 32 is 0.46875. And we could convert that to a decimal if we needed to. Now, here is the probability of not E. Not E is picking any letter except E. Okay, so there's actually two ways you could do it. You could add up all the letters that are E, that are not E rather, and get the probability of that. Or use the idea of complements. Complements say that the two events are complements, their probabilities add up to 1. So that means if you subtract one of the probabilities from 1, you'll get the other probability. So for example, the probability of not E is equal to 1 minus the probability of E. Now you might ask, Mr. Antonucci, why are you making it all complicated like that? Because it ends up being easier. Because the probability of E is very simple to calculate. It's just 5 out of 32. And if you just subtract that from 1, that will give you the probability of everything else, which is not E. So 32 out of 32, I just converted the 1 to 32, a fraction of 32. And that's going to give you 27 out of 32, which is 0.84375. Okay, and there you go. All right, guys, hope that helped you with probability. Take care.